Hello and welcome to Marketing Unzipped. My name's Rob Curtis and I am extremely excited to share the microphone with a dear friend of mine, Fiona Scott. Fiona Scott has years of experience and expertise in all things PR, journalism, and so much life and business advice, which I've had the pleasure of receiving. How are you, Fiona?
I'm really well, and I'd just like to say sorry about that, Rob.
I wouldn't have you any other way.
No.
It's as I said, it's been, I think, how many years have we known each other now?
Oh gosh, now you are asking. It's a few.
I was gonna say, I'm sure we're about 7 or 8 now. I think. It's gotta be, hasn't it?
And I think I probably said to you quite early on, you should run your own show.
You're making me blush already.
Yeah.
That's well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
It's,
in all senses of the word, podcast show and business.
No, and I've always admired from when I first met you, and almost in the craziest way, almost felt in fear is the wrong word, but being like, wow, this woman is just incredible. She's come so many different angles, so many different ideas. At the time we first met, and my complete inexperience in this small business world, I was just almost like besotted, if that was the right word to say. And so obviously working with you now as we do, and just getting to truly call you a friend is an absolute privilege. And yeah, massive thanks for coming on today. And I know you run an absolutely incredible business with Scott Media, and I'll let you tell everybody a bit more about that in a second, as well as your podcast, which I've had the privilege of being a guest on. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about you? Let our audience hear about you rather than from you interviewing lots of other people.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm almost 60 years old.
No, don't believe it.
Well, it's true. I've got grey hair that's usually got other colours mixed in with it. So I've been doing what I do for a long time. So I think of myself always as a journalist who's a storyteller. I started in journalism I started training in the late 1980s. Worked in newspapers and radio for 5 years. And then I moved into TV for 13 years. I went from researcher to series producer and loved it. I just loved television. It's powerful. And now we do sort of television and video. It's the most powerful medium of all.
Amazing.
And it still is today, probably more powerful today. And I would have stayed there forever. But unfortunately, ITV went through a change. They cut back on their regional programming all across the UK. It wasn't specific to me, though it felt pretty specific at the time. And 1,000 of us were made redundant. And in TV, it's a world where there are hubs. And the hubs today are London, Manchester, Bristol, Cardiff, and Glasgow, Scotland. And I had 4 children that I was responsible for. I was married, and I just couldn't see how my life was going to work. I'd been in Bristol for 13 years. That just about worked. But the BBC in Bristol tends to focus very much on daytime TV and natural history, which I'm not qualified in.
Okay.
So I thought, how is this going to work? So I thought my starting out point was I'll become a freelancer. Loads of my friends have done it. I never wanted to be self-employed. I was terrified of not having a steady income. But I thought, what choices do I have? I don't want to be in London all the time. I don't want to be in Manchester all the time. I did take a 6-month contract in Cardiff, and it nearly killed me, commuting every day.
I can imagine that's hard, especially with the family.
Really hard with the family. So I decided I'm going to be a freelancer. And part of that freelancing, I'll do a bit of PR support for small businesses. Mm-hmm. Because in a previous life, I'd been business editor at the Swindon Advertiser. And it was a job I didn't want to do. I literally walked in one day and I was crime reporter when I walked in and I was business editor when I walked out.
It's a bit of a switch, isn't it?
Yeah. And to me, that was, it was made clear to me there'd been some internal wrangling, and it was made clear to me there was no choice. My job was now going to be this. So I want you to think about that. Blue lights, doing crime stories, going to court every day, dealing with the police.
Yeah, very intense, really interesting, I guess, isn't it?
And topical and day-to-day and fast-paced to business, which to me felt like a dry old bone at the time. But what I've discovered over the sort of 18 months I held that role was that small business owners particularly are endlessly fascinating. They have multiple stories, and they have no idea how to share them. And they still pretty much don't today, unless they work with people like us. They don't know what their stories are. They try and sell at you all the time, which even then was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
And they come from the majority a really good place. And they are the backbone of every single community in the country. They just are.
Yeah.
They're certainly the backbone of every economy.
I completely agree, and like I said, I feel very similar in respect to the journey. Is I never thought I'd be a entrepreneur, a business owner, whatever language you want to use. I never had that vision for myself when I was young, or don't even know. It feels sometimes like I don't even know how I landed here. But you're right though, and I've learned that over these past few years with the agency is that how pivotal those small businesses are in the community. But like you said, almost backbone of the country, really, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I find it absolutely insane. A question quickly about your time in TV. What would you say your best experience was?
I had so many. And that probably will be book 4 or something. The stuff I can talk about, there isn't one. I think the documentaries I was involved with, whether it was a junior level or a higher level, which actually changed something. Because TV is so powerful, it can very quickly enforce change that might have been waiting to happen for years, decades. So an example of that would be, I was a very junior researcher on we did a single subject documentary series called West Eye View, which was incredibly successful. People used to nickname it Left Eye View. But what I would say to that is investigative journalists tend to be quite left-wing because they don't like social injustice. And we did something about the Bristol Royal Infirmary. And at that time, league tables and data had shown that they were losing ground in the number of children that they were losing through operations on their hearts when they were born or newborn. And it was an operation called an aortic switch. And a lot of these children were dying.
Oh, wow.
And the data showed that was an issue. And the BBC, I believe, actually ran the first story on it, but they didn't seem to realise what they had. But my boss at the time, James, did. And he dug a little deeper. And there was a whistleblower behind this who was an anaesthetist who'd actually blew the whistle on 2 or 3 consultants at that time who he felt shouldn't be operating because their performance had dipped. And he felt children were dying needlessly, and he blew the whistle, and he was sacked.
That's insane.
It was insane.
Wow.
And as a result, so we did a number of documentaries locally, led by James.
Yes.
And we also did the dispatches. And I had a really junior role in this. I don't want to overstate it. But that documentary and the series of stories that followed led to the introduction of league tables for consultants across the UK. The consultants were disciplined and various actions taken, but I'm not going to go into that. And also it led people to think about the fact that even as a consultant or a surgeon, your ability and skill can degrade over time.
Yeah, well, I guess this level of authority that comes with the title is people hold them in such high esteem, right? So this has just completely opened that conversation up, hasn't it?
And it was one of the stories, not the only one, that led to the whole rules around whistleblowers. Because when you get structures like that, and we've all seen them, and they can be in health, education, public service, there are structures that are set up to support people who are not performing. And therefore that can have a negative impact on the public. So I was very proud of all those documentaries that I had a tiny part in. I had a very specific one where we won an award, and it was called God, I can't remember the name. Anyway, I can tell you what it was. It was about a man who you won't find it online anymore because it's quite old. It was about a man who had raped somebody.
Oh, wow.
And he never was convicted of that charge, but he raped someone, and the case was because the woman, the victim, was deemed unsuitable for court because she had mental health issues. She came in, I don't know how she found us, but she did, and she approached us, and we had to be careful because she did have mental health issues, and we had to check out the veracity of what she was saying very quickly, and that's a Wiltshire-based story. It became clear that this woman had suffered a stranger rape, which is quite rare. And the police backed her story, and we ran the story, and we named this individual, and we won an award for that from it was, I think it might have been a Royal Television Society award or similar, and we got a £500 gift which we donated to Women Against Rape. Now, that woman who was raped not only got her day in court, she waived her right to anonymity to have justice for herself.
That's incredibly brave.
Incredibly brave woman.
Brave, yeah.
And she'd been turned down for compensation from the Criminal Industries Compensation Board, which existed at that time for victims of crime. She'd been turned down because it was deemed no crime had been committed against her because of this. But when we ran the documentary, not only did those things happen, but then she was awarded a sum of money. We stayed in touch with her for several years. And that guy never went to prison. For all I know, he's still walking the streets of Wiltshire today. But we did a documentary to call out a criminal who raped at least 2 women that I know of, one of whom supplied background information but didn't want to be interviewed. That's very common in these cases.
Sure.
So I was very proud of that.
Yeah, and they're mind-blowing stories, and like even giving yourself a discredit, I'm sure. But as you mentioned, even on the first version, just being a researcher in that team, what were the sort of learnings that you take from that process of being in those sorts of teams that have come forward with you, whereas you work with your clients now, or in different stories and different scenarios now, would you say?
I think the main learning is, particularly in television and actually now, is that everything is a team effort. Everything is a team effort. You might not employ people, but you need people. And you certainly do in television, that you have to have complete honesty and transparency throughout the process. You have to treat people with kindness unless they don't deserve it. So in these cases, there were certain people that you treated very factually, very legally. You gave them their right of reply. You needed to know the law inside and out.
I could imagine.
And that's both the law of the land, but also the structures and guidelines through which you operate in television, because that's 2 separate areas. And you have to be mindful of that. And you have to have a degree of patience. I'm a very impatient person. I want to tell that story straight away. But if there's a court case involved in the background, as there was with the rape story I've just told you, well, you have to wait till that process is finished. There is a time to tell a story.
Yeah, that's a really good point, isn't it? Because I could imagine you in that process going, right now we need to get this story out, we need to make people aware. And I'd imagine that was almost incredibly challenging to rein yourself in, because it's such a powerful story that hopefully has influenced, or we will know certainly has helped influence so many other people from since that point, and being able to kind of make that sort of change and be able to react for the person as well that's going through that, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
And but from those let's say those crime stories, obviously you stepped into the business land, and also you mentioned then obviously you're working ITV, things like that, which obviously has led you on to some very exciting times of becoming a freelancer. And I'll keep going with the story, but I think it's much better from you. How did you find stepping into that small business world, coming away from that freelancer mindset?
God, well, that took ages. First of all, running a small business in those early years, when you've got no desire to run a business, it's not something you've been brought up with, you've not been trained in it, you make a ton of mistakes. And now looking back, I can see, and I've written a book about all the mistakes I made, which were many and multiple.
It's a great read. I've done that one. I've done that one.
Yeah. But the thing is, there were some things I did right. So a couple of things, I took action even when it was imperfect. That was the right thing to do. The other thing I did was I networked and grew my contact base. Now, that comes from being a journalist. Networking and people are critical to growth. Critical. How you network and how you reach people is what we do.
Yeah.
marketing and PR.
Yeah.
And there are multiple tools. You and I offer certain tools, and there are other tools. And I realised really early on, particularly as I felt that TV was a niche skill set, that if people didn't know who I was and didn't know what I had done, why would they ever pay me a penny to do anything? So for the first time, instead of making other people look good and telling other people's stories, I had to tell my own stories.
How did that feel?
Really weird, like licking your own ears. And even today, I have that. Even today, I sometimes think, God, I'm sick of seeing myself. I'm sick of seeing. But the truth is, the minute you are sick of seeing it is the minute you need to do it again. Because there are people watching you all the time.
Yeah.
There are people around you that you can't see all of the time. And you don't know where they're going to convert to buy, but they sure as hell are ever going to convert if you're invisible. Absolutely. Or if you drop off a cliff. So those are the things I got right. Couple of things I got wrong. ITV were very good, and I was told I was going to be made redundant, and there was like a 6-month lag because ITV wanted to make all of us redundant at the same time for the reasons that. So basically, I got paid a full-time salary for 6 months during a period of time of building.
Yes.
So I would always be grateful for that. But what I did was they also offered to pay for any training.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, I'll have loads of training in how to use certain cameras and editing and things like that. But what I didn't appreciate is that technology moves really quickly, and I did no training on how to run a business. And that was a huge mistake. If I had realised that, I would have spent ITV's money on business courses on how to run a business and all the other stuff you've got to do to run a business, not on how to use the next big thing in cameras or the next bit of software. I can get training on that stuff anytime, or luckily now outsource it to somebody else to do it. And I have never used that training because it became irrelevant to what I was doing.
I think that's such a good point. And I feel, again, my mindset is very similar process to you, as we just jump in and find out, right? It's obviously where in your past, where you've been working in that journalist perspective with businesses and pieces, I know you would have been pulling nuggets out and all sorts, so you would have probably had more in your back pocket than you probably definitely given yourself credit for. But I think you're right, because I think there's this big challenge of, or for me, it's a process of where we could almost do all that education, which is great and valuable, and we're adding to our skill stacks and all those jargony things. But I guess the best learning, or would you say the best learning, is just by being in it, just by experience?
Yeah. And the thing is, we all make mistakes. The only true mistake is to not learn from them and improve. That's the only true mistake, because we all will make mistakes. And then sometimes, that's why you celebrate the wins, however small. Because passion and celebrating the wins get you through, pardon my French, but anyone who knows me knows I'll say this. It's those things that get you through the shitty days. It's easy to get through the good days. So celebrate your wins. And but to me, all that's changed for me is I'm still telling stories today. Is the mediums I'm using to tell stories and who's paying the bill.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. And how have you found that transition from, obviously, your time in, especially from TV, with obviously the cameras, that creative pieces, to almost where we are now in regards to, we're sat in a studio now having a conversation, there's cameras around us, social media, TikToks, all these sorts of pieces now where cameras are so accessible and creative. Can you see any similarities, or what's the glaring sort of difference between sort of those processes from what online platforms might prefer? And is there anything like that you've seen?
The glaring differences are around people. When you've got a team of dedicated professionals who are going to produce a TV show, whether it's a documentary or a series or entertainment, you are bringing a load of creatives together to produce something that started off as one person's idea and becomes everyone's idea, and you create it, and it will be better for it.
Yes, that's incredible.
And the quality will probably be better. But in terms of kit and everything, I just love the fact that now we are in a position which did not really exist 17 years ago when I started, of we can make our own TV shows.
Yes.
We can make our own radio shows. It doesn't mean the more traditional routes are not viable, but they have to be smarter. because we can build our own audiences. Think of all the people that are famous today that started on YouTube, building their own audiences. I can think of Justin Bieber, Ed Sheeran, Sam Ryder, Gabrielle Aplin, who was a more local one, Joe Sugg. Yeah. These are all people that are seen now as famous people, and they're invited onto traditional shows because they built a massive audience themselves. Now, having said that, building a massive audience yourself is not easy. No. It requires time, dedication, and commitment.
I think that's such a key thing to say. I talk to my two daughters a lot, and my youngest, she will be a YouTube star at some point in the future. I'm not sure what she's doing, but it's almost that what we see and consume every single day is the end product now, isn't it? It's not the years of the ugly videos, the hours of sweat, blood, and tears because nothing's going right, and all of those pieces. And I think that's the really undervalued part in that journey to, like, I'll use the language, the perfect personal brand, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there are very few quick wins in businesses. You might be lucky. I've got a client who was very lucky and had a viral video of about 2 million views. Did that make her business loads of money overnight? No. If she kept having viral videos of that level, then we'd probably be talking differently. So the thing is, things have spikes, they have peaks and troughs. What wins the day is consistency and persistence. It does. And most people that we think of as an overnight success, they're not overnight. They've been plugging away. Sam Ryder's been plugging away for ages. All right, some in the influencer market space, they might have been plugging away from a very young age. Mm-hmm. Probably some of them before legally they should have been even on social media. But they've been plugging away for ages. Do not expect, it's like creating a website and expecting suddenly the sales are going to roll in.
Just because you're there, just because you press live.
It's just, you've got to have realistic expectations. You've got to put in the donkey work and celebrate, as I said, the small wins along the journey. And then after a year, look back when you think, oh, it hasn't gone quite as far, I didn't meet my targets. Look back to where you were a year ago and you really will see how far you've come. Yeah. Even if you haven't got quite as far as you thought you wanted to.
Yes.
Because the journey isn't like that. It's this.
Yes. So true. And I think listening to you talk, Ben, and obviously I know how much we've worked together and have so many conversations around this, that I feel that perfectly almost surmises what it's like working with you and your process, or like, how do you find setting, or the question would probably be best put as, how do you find setting people's expectations when it comes to that process in your world and your ecosystem now from a PR perspective?
Okay, PR and dealing with the media can look like there's no process. There absolutely is a process. And I have just by accident, but by being a journalist, I have a process that's a journalistic model. I explain that to every retained client. Whether they listen or not is another thing. Some do, and some get it, and some don't. I have a contract that sets it out really clearly and in great detail. It's quite dense, but if clients take the time to read it, it's all there. I will verbally explain it.
What does that look like if you were sort of setting expectations to people?
So I would say to people, generally what I say to people is, PR is different for every business. Mm-hmm. The process is the same. Yeah. If you have no profile at all, and in my world that means never been featured in the media, or it was 5 years ago, then it is going to take 1 year to 2 years before you're going to start to feel that you're starting to be visible. And that's how it starts. It starts as a feeling. If you think working with me in a year is going to up your bottom line by 10% or 20% or 30%, we might as well stop talking now.
Yeah, I get you.
We might as well stop talking now. Now, that can happen on the very up, but that's a quirk.
Yes.
And it probably won't happen in year 2 or 3. So this is about me being a partner with you as you grow your business, and I do stuff and critically you do stuff.
Yeah, that's working with you. That for me, that is the powerful thing. I can't enable you if I don't give you anything.
Yes.
It's you help me so much going through that process of ideas and pieces like that of what I should be communicating about, and Rob, answer your email and respond on that one, and pieces like that where you provide the opportunities to me as well. But if I'm not fueling you, I can't ignite you. I can't send you off to do the incredible stuff you do, right?
No, and also people are paying me for a few hours a month. That's what they're paying me for. So if we planned a story, I don't know, let's just say it's the launch of your podcast. and you provide me with no information, or you've delayed the launch, and you say to me, and I say, well, where's the information, Rob? And you say, oh, I've been really busy, I haven't got round to it. And then you say, oh, well, we'll do 2 stories next month. No, we won't. But people do that.
Because who wants to see this mug twice in the same
Well,
thing,
the
right?
thing is, that's right. With the media,
Yeah.
ideally, in an ideal world, with the media for a small business, if you appear in the media somewhere,
Mhm.
and I could be talking a podcast or a guest blog,
Yeah.
once per calendar month, we will build profile.
Yes. And I think that's the thing. And always, from what I've learned from you in this throughout this process of working with you, but it's like the compound interest. It's the consistency. It's existing. It's being visible. Having different perspectives of you. And I mentioned a minute ago about personal brand. It's not just, yes, we did this work and this is what we do, and that selling mindset. It's identifying or demonstrating who you actually are as a person. I think is a huge part of that. Which I think, from our own experience in the agency, that gets missed a lot. It's actually, people do want to know from you. They want to learn that they might buy from you in the future at some point, but actually they're just really interested in you and your journey and your story, right? And that's why we do these things.
Well, people forget that almost in every business, it's slightly different in the corporate world, or if you're going through bidding or procurement processes, where it's often very money-led. But mostly in our world, people buy from people. So if you meet someone who's selling at you all the time, not only to get bored of it, because you kind of know after a while, you have to have variety of story, and you have to be a personality. And if you can't grasp that in the world of small business, and you just want to be purely transactional, that's fine, but we're not going to work well together. It's just not going to work for us. Now, with the media, if you want lots of editorial coverage, i.e. coverage you're not paying for, then they are going to be writing about people, comments, opinions, experiences. They're not writing about your product or service.
Yes.
Unless it becomes a topic itself and you comment upon it. But how can we predict when that is going to happen? Because I've worked in the media nearly 40 years and I can't predict it. So how are you going to ever predict that?
Not a chance.
So I built a process around the unpredictability of the media, really.
Yes.
And people are paying me for my time and expertise, not for the results that churn out the other end.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't say to a client, oh, I've got you on Panorama, or I've got you on This Morning, all of which have happened. Now you owe me 20 grand.
Yeah.
It's the same price.
Yeah, good for you.
But it's the same price if you are a guest blogger somewhere, or if you're in your local paper or your local online magazine.
Yeah, again, like I said a minute ago, but that process of each single activity, it will continue to add. And then we were talking about this before we recorded, funnily enough, but that process then of, great, you've got these stories, having that engaged client working with you, going, okay, brilliant, we can share them on our socials, we can share them on our website, we can be making as much noise as well about these stories to help exemplify it, help make more noise about it as well, right?
And I call that amplification. And PR basically, is public relations. What you do is public relations. I don't specialise in your area. What I do is public relations. You don't specialise. But working together, we take that. So say you appear in the local paper. Generally, if you're in the local paper for a good story, it will be online as well. Yeah. You share the online. You don't share the hard copy. So you share the online. The amount of times people don't put it on their social media. Thank you to the Swindon Advertiser or, I don't know, the Bournemouth Echo for sharing our story, tagging them in. And then sometimes, if you've been on radio, is a classic example of this. Radio is really powerful, often forgotten as a medium. And then why aren't you sharing a blog of what it was like to go to BBC Wiltshire for the first time?
Yes.
People want to read that behind the scenes stuff.
Because there's so much more. There's so many stories that can come from that one activity. So when you think about that, your language earlier of aim for that calendar month, 111, how you can amplify that within that month is unlimited, right? It's like you said, it's your website content, it's your blog, it's your personal journey, it's then your socials, your company socials, your personal socials. I can't even say the words now. But going through that process of making sure that noise is made will only I love that word compound today, but it will compound every step that you're taking when you work with clients, right?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And I mean, some people, Rob, might they, well, why, Rob, when you're an expert in digital marketing, why would you do the PR stuff?
because I could not appreciate the value of any more of it. So obviously I can put my massive geeky hat on here and go backlink, search engine optimization, so on and so forth, 1,010%. But actually for me, and being in the stage of the journey we are in a business, and we started working together pretty early on. I think we had more cups of teas and more I'm almost going to cry on your lap, Fiona, I'm not sure what I'm doing type conversations. But that process there is, for me, has been one of the pivotal movers from our business perspective, because a story that I say to a lot of people when I talk about, and certainly when I recommend you, the favorite part of me in our PR journey is when I bump into someone that I've played football against over the years, and I've gone to school with, and they're telling me the stories. They're telling me what's happened in my own life. I've asked them, how are you? They're like, yeah, great. I've seen you're doing X, Y, Z. Yeah. Like type of thing. I think that's that process working. That now is imprinted in somebody else's mind, in somebody else's thought pattern. I've made an interpretation through working with you. And I think, again, compound, favorite word of the day, but that will continue to scale up as we grow, wherever we take the business in the future, or any other opportunities. That piece there is always going to be there, and making those influences on potential customers' lives, or just people that are interested in maybe the ADHD. It's all these sorts of things that I know that's doing such a great job of sharing my story, sharing who we are and what we do, and making the positive changes.
It's awareness which works even when you're asleep, because it keeps on working. I was talking to a client the other day, and we did a story in a online business magazine that he and I had forgotten about. It was 18 months ago. We've moved on. That's many stories ago. But he had a booking for a speaking gig of like $3,000 or something, because someone had been searching that day. That old story had come up. Now, he thought, oh yeah, I think he might be good. I'll find him, because there was an online story, there was a link. I'll find him, I'll ring him, I'll book him. Brilliant. Now, I couldn't have predicted that, but what I can predict is that visibility remains there when people search, and we are in a digital age, and people will search you, even if they've met you in real life. So if they meet you at a conference or a business show, and a year later they think, oh, I really need that thing, and I think that guy I met at the business show, I think his name was Rob, I'll see if I'm connected with him on LinkedIn. Oh yeah, here I am, I'll have a look. I'll just do a Google search on him. Yeah. That's what they do. We all do it. We all do it. And we have to anticipate that is going to happen, and PR helps that happen.
How do you go through the challenge when that Google search isn't as nice as it should be, let's say? Yeah. What does that look like?
Crisis management. Yeah. It comes up 2 or 3 times a year. It comes up 2 or 3 times a year, not that often, with clients who've got a thing. And it also comes up with me where I will be contacted out of the blue by a company I don't know, because they're right in the midst of something serious. So with clients, I have to build up trust enough that when things look like they're going south, I'm told. Yes. And we prepare for it. Your biggest risks are from staff and also from online social media chatter. That's where the biggest risks are. And we can, if we know something's going south, we can plan it, or I can react in the moment. I don't know, it might be a terrible review or something like that. Yeah. We can react in the moment and deal with it then, because your retained client is part of what we do. When someone comes out of the blue, I have to, and I had this a few years ago, a company, it was a big company in London, came to me through Facebook, actually. It was through, they were reaching out for somebody. They were in a crisis situation with the national media. The finance director did not know who to deal with, privately went to a few people that he was personally connected to on Facebook, and one of them happened to be a client of mine, put them in touch with me. So I'm on, it's Bank Holiday Monday, dealing with this person on Facebook I never met, and I was shoehorned into their board meeting the next day. Now, I charge a lot of money for that because I needed to act really quickly. Yes. And then what happens then is I have to get to the bottom of what is the story? Mm-hmm. Who is the journalist? Do you even know? Sometimes they don't. And then I have to backtrack and research it. Yes. And then I have to say, right, okay, this is what I think you should do. And now in this case, what had happened was this particular company had been flagged up by people as a bad example of something. national journalists had contacted them 6 times asking for them to respond. And their view was, if we don't respond to this journalist, the story won't happen.
Good luck with that one.
No, that's not how the law works.
No.
A journalist has to prove in a negative situation that they have done everything possible to contact you. Now, contacting you 6 times and you ghosting them has proved that has met that criteria.
Definitely.
And the story had run without their comment. So my advice then is, do never treat a national journalist like that. If you do not want to have a conversation, employ someone like me to create a middleman and more impartial, and I will have the conversation, find out what their needs are, what the deadline is, and I will come back to you and we will come up with a strategy based on that deadline. But if you think it's going to stop there, no way. We need to now build good news over time, if it's possible. Now, sometimes in serious crisis management, I've had this twice in 17 years, there is no recovery from that crisis management. Because what's being said is true. You are in real trouble. Your reputation is damaged to such an extent that I will think it, especially in the small business space, that it's time to stop. And my advice might be, and my advice will always be honest, but it might not be what you want to hear.
Of course. But then, like you said, when certain times come around, let's say, in that process, it's okay. It's a level of acceptance that people need to hear at that point, right?
Yeah.
It's which is incredible. And just as a last thought, or just a last question in this in our chat, but what advice would you give, or what are those first few steps for someone that might not be ready to work with you yet? That they may have just launched, or they may have been in business for a while, but they're not quite at that point of going, brilliant, I can go and invest my marketing spend with Fiona. What are the first few things people could hook their coattails to, so to speak?
Okay,
Where could they go?
Well, first of all, ask around people that you know and trust already in business and find out who is a good PR partner. And use those words, PR partner, not PR agency or company. Too many people go out and think, I need PR, and then spend thousands and thousands on it. They've got no direction. There's almost a job that has to be done first before someone like me comes along. And then I would say that a good PR partner will have a value ladder. So they will have where you can meet them for free. So in my case, that will be come to my meetups, sign up to my newsletter, join my Facebook group, follow me for a bit. Just see what's happening and where you might fit into that. And that might start, you might go, I can see that fits into place. Or that might think, well, I don't know how that works with my business. You can book an hour.
That's the magic.
You can book an hour with me, which is $199 plus VAT. You book an hour, you pay $199, and there is no obligation after that. But I can tell within 15 minutes where you are and where I think you could be and what you should be doing. And it might be that I say to you, you're not ready for me yet. You need to go off. If you're selling widgets online, I might say to you, you need to rob in your life. Because you're selling widgets, and in order, the me bit is the glossy bit for you. And that needs to come later. So in year one, I'd be spending your money here, and I can suggest 2 or 3 partners to go to, and I can manage your expectations about spend. Go and do that first. Because sometimes people come to me, I haven't got a website. You don't want to do PR without a website, because a lot of what I do these days is about online visibility and the creating of energy on the internet, or Google juice, I often call it, but it is energy on the internet. So where am I going to drive people to? All right, some people will say to me, but I'm really big on Instagram. What happens if your account is suspended tomorrow?
So true.
I
say to so many people, and it was one of my little favorite go-tos all the time, but your website is the closest thing to a digital asset you'll ever own. Right? It's social platforms, email marketing, all these pieces will come and go. But actually, your website might look different in 5 years, 10 years. It could, for whatever reason, but that's the closest thing you've got that you actually can full wholly control. And for people that are not doing that yet, it's a necessity. And
with the media, if your aim of the media is just backlinks, you need the website. If the aim of your media is brand awareness or thought leadership, you need the website. You don't build thought leadership by saying to a journalist, you can find me on my Instagram account where I've got 200 followers. If you've got 100,000 followers, then it's a slightly different conversation. But journalists check you out just like everybody else, and you will lose credibility if you just say, I've got my Facebook page, it's got 50 likes. No, you have to have a website, and that needs to be the first thing. You need professional images.
So true.
You need professional images.
You've told me off enough times.
Oh my God, please. And it's not a big spend.
No.
Get professional images done and get into the habit of having them done. Because I recently worked, I'm not going to say who, obviously, with a multi-million-pound company. I was writing a story. I asked for a headshot of the CEO, and he sent me a selfie of himself.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And the thing is, unless the story is about selfies, journalists will look at that and not take you seriously as a business person or an expert. If you're not prepared to invest in even the minimum in yourself and your personal branding and standing up for your business, then, so I can tell really quickly.
Yes.
And if you start pushing back on those things that I know, then I'm going to think, PR really isn't for you. And it either isn't for you because your business isn't ready, you aren't ready, it's not the best thing for your business in phase one, or it's never going to work for you because your expectations are totally way off.
Yes.
And the fifth one is you're a bit of an arse. I'm sorry.
Which one do I check? I'm doing all right. I'm still here. But no, Fiona, that's been brilliant. It'd be lovely to... I'm going to ask one more question.
Go on, ask one more.
Like I said, I've had the privilege of knowing you already for about 7-8 years and seeing and just listening and learning so much from you. What does the future hold for Fiona Scott and Scott Media? What does the next few years look like for you?
Gosh, well, all of that has actually changed. When I started, my goal was so modest. I wanted to recreate my corporate salary with a bit extra to pay for my laptop, my phone, and my car.
Yeah, get the nice car.
Because actually, sorry about that. Because that's what I wanted. Yeah. That's what I wanted to achieve. But then suddenly one year I hit a 6-figure turnover, which was terrifying because I thought, how am I going to keep that going?
No pressure like good pressure.
Yeah, and I stayed like that. I never wanted to scale up. I didn't want there to be lots of Fiona Scotts popping up everywhere. I didn't even appreciate that I'd created a process that seems to work for a number of people. But then about a year ago, my stepdaughter joined me in the business after maternity leave, and which I never expected at all. I had no clue or thought that anyone in the business, a family, would join me. And that has really changed the thought process, because now the business will, if she wants it to, become hers one day, and then she can take it in a whole direction she wants to, having built up learning. So that's when really it became, from being Fiona Scott Media Consultancy to becoming Scott Media. And she'll take it in all sorts of different directions. So I'm enjoying exploring new avenues sensibly and becoming more, because it's fun.
Yes. I knew that was coming. I knew that was what you were going to say. Because it is, isn't it? That I think where everything's moving so quick, especially in the current climate, things like AI, just the video content productions, all these sorts of pieces that people can be so creative. There's just so much opportunity out there that I don't even think we know about that's going to come in 5 years, right?
And I love opportunity, but for a lot of people, it's very overwhelming. And I think you're probably the same, but I'm definitely the person that says it is overwhelming. There's a billion things you can do. Let's strip it down to just a few. And then what we'll do is in year 2, we'll see, how's that going? We'll do a little bit of tracking back. I'm not hugely, as you know, into analysis and things, but let's see how that's going. How's the business going? How's it stacking up? Do we continue doing that? Do we add another layers in?
Yes.
So it's really like layers on a cake.
Yes. Yeah, great analogy.
And I suppose I'm not a business coach and I'm not a qualified coach in any way, but actually a lot of it is coaching. And I happen to deliver this tiny bit. And I want to keep on doing that. I never want to stop doing that. And I do my own PR too. Yeah. You know, I'm a great believer in I've got to walk my talk and talk my walk. So I do that too. So it's not just about telling others what to do. I do it myself and try it myself.
And that's what I really admire about everything that you. I've been able to have the privilege of watching you take on challenges, etc. Your event earlier this year, which was it was this year, wasn't it? I'm losing my marbles now. Time's gone so quick. But earlier this year was absolutely incredible, and I knew that was a big challenge for you in respect of it was the next step from your previous events. How you were making things bigger and better. And I know you've got exciting plans to do this, to do a bigger and better version again. It's I won't ask you for any tips now or any little secrets now. I know there's lots of exciting things to come. But Fiona, thank you so much for joining me today. How can our listeners get hold of you, have a chat if they've got any questions around PR and book a power hour and all of those things?
Right, okay. Easy. My website's scottmedia.uk. You can find loads on there. You can email me, fiona@fionascott.co.uk, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Fiona Scott.
Funny
and
that.
and on Facebook, I do have a group, a relatively big group. Called
It's an awesome group.
Yeah, Fiona Scott's PR Tribe, which anyone can join for free, but I do ask for your email. And I share tips and hints, and the group helps each other. It's a group for people who are serious about PR and marketing. You might not need my element of PR, and that's fine. But it's a group for small business owners to share ideas, share stories, and they do.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be involved in that group. It's great to see ideas float in, successes, challenges in that process, questions. All of these pieces get fielded around, and it's incredibly valuable. But Fiona, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And